Well, damn. I blinked, and Classic is over. Well, over is a tricky word when it comes to MMOs. You don't get a credits roll and a thanks for playing once you finish the final boss. But realistically, for most players, there is an end, whether it be from clearing all of the raids, maybe their full desired gear set, a PvP rank, a certain amount of gold, whatever. I've always said that I'll play Classic forever in some way, shape, or form, whether it's alt leveling and gearing, or fresh servers if they're a thing. At the start of the game though, I made a video titled, Will It Be a Success? So, now that we've reached the final update, I thought it appropriate that just how we mark the beginning of vanilla with a video, so too will we mark the quote end, and answer that question. In this video, I'll share the good, the bad, and the ugly of not only the game itself, but also my personal experience, since I think that can serve as some useful perspective, direct from the monotone horse's mouth. The ultimate goal is to tell a story, and if this somehow makes it through the ether to a developer, some suggestions and feedback on what I think would improve the game for possible fresh servers, or even Burning Crusade Classic. First, just going over my experience here. What did I do in Classic World of Warcraft? Well, I played it. A lot. As of this video, the game is about 16-ish months old. Let's just see how much playtime I have. Oh my god, I should not have done that. Hey, these videos I make about how much I love the game aren't bluster. It revolutionized the world of MMOs for good reason. It's fun and addicting. A lot of what made it special has held 15 years later, and a lot of it hasn't, but overall, I can say that I played the crap out of the re-release because I've had a lot of fun with it. We've rewinded to the years of 2004 to 2007. Fortnite and dirty rotten streamers and YouTubers are out, and Heelys, MySpace, and Neopets are in. World of Warcraft now looks like, this. What is this, an N64 game? You have to pay to respec? Why can't I afford my training? Why are my bags constantly full? Why the fuck does it take 30 kills to get one Raptor heart? And if they dare make it to level 60 in PvP as Alliance, they have the unfortunate destiny of going toe-to-toe against God himself. What the hell? Is this a game or a torture rack? How can people play this imbalanced garbage? Let me queue up another one. Classic talent trees, spell training, more than 4 stats. Imbalance. It's a quintessential classic MMORPG straight out of 2007. Some aspects have aged like fine wine, and others like old cheese, like Spice Girls memorabilia. Reviewing Classic is about as straightforward as the game itself. Your itinerary is to level to 60 in Raid or PvP, or both. Compared to what the modern MMO has to offer, objectively looking at it, you'd think that there's no way that it could compete, but somehow it has. Simplicity has proven itself to be timeless, and players from around the world have spent over a year basking in the nostalgic glow of old Azeroth. Or perhaps it's a lack of certain features and designs that draws the crowd. No way to faction change, race change, WoW token, level boost. The game has gained so much in the past 15 years, but at the same time regressed in certain aspects. And playing it reminds you of a more simple time where your daily and weekly itinerary, aside from raiding, is whatever the hell you want it to be. You see, age before daily and weekly timers started infesting every single game known to man. Like, literally. How in the hell do you have weekly quests for Resident Evil? Well, they found a way. Really, your only weekly task is raiding, and gold farming, which is variable in how hard you try, how good your guild is, and how good you are at it. Some equate a lack of daily and weekly timers to a lack of content. It really depends on your taste and perspective. I enjoy it personally because you decide what you do in the world. There's more sense of freedom in my opinion, and if you don't log in for a while, you don't fall behind as much because of that. The game retains replayability in a very different way. The main one being that these bosses in each of these 40-man raids dropping like 2 items, and many of them being good no matter the raid tier. Even in Naxxramas, there's always a reason to go back to the Molten Core, and every previous raid tier for that matter, due to the scarcity and uniqueness of the loot. Since current basically makes the previous raid tier completely irrelevant as soon as the next one is released, it fills in content with these daily and weekly timers that you see so often. I'm not saying that this is objectively inferior or anything, it's just different and important to bring up in a review. A player from current who picks up Classic upon reaching level 60 will be like, alright, so where do I unlock world quests? Well, that's not how it works in Classic. Like I said, it's really just all preference. Personally, I prefer the Classic style because it feels like you're more actually playing the game to me, whereas daily time sinks to me feel just that, time sinks. But again, the entire MMORPG genre is a time sink, so it's all subjective. There's consequence to your actions in so many ways. With the lack of community-destroying features such as Cross-Realm or LFR, there is an actual community, and if you're fun, people will remember, and if you act like a dick, people will remember. You have a reputation, which makes every action you do have more meaning. If you saw my worst of Classic video, you'd know that it can have its downsides. Because the community influences the game so much, your experience is also influenced by the people that you're playing with. You run into cool people, you'll have fun, and if you run into toxic dickheads, you won't have fun. And it's extremely variable who you'll run into, and doing some research before picking a server is definitely a good idea, so you know what you're getting into. The way you build your character has consequence. If you change your mind on what you want your character to be, you aren't bailed out with features such as race change, faction change, infinite free respecs, and ultra homogenized gear that's useful for every spec. If you gear is a healer, you're a healer, and switching to DPS is a big setback because the gear's so different. In current, it's easy because mastery, haste, versatility, and crit are useful for literally every single class and role, but mana per 5 or attack power don't translate to the other side of the fence. This is another thing that you can go either way with. On one hand, it's nice to have that convenience in current, but on the other hand, I think you lose identity of what your character actually is, what they excel at, what they're weak against, which in turn can have a negative effect on that investment. It's convenient, which is good, but it's also anti-RPG, which in my opinion is bad. So combine all of this with the old talents, spell training, range of stats, good gear, bad gear, imbalance. The game just reeks of those old school RPG elements, and it's in my opinion bar none the best MMO out there in that aspect. The community on the other hand is a bit more complicated. I mean, people are always changing. Back in my day, our memes, before they were even called memes, were on ytmnd.com.
You're the man now, dog.
YouTube was a dating website. Thought was a word associated with a database. And when you ran into an asshole, you didn't find their address and try to get them fired from their job, call the police to their house. You just called them an asshole and moved on. If it was Xbox Live, I guess you'd throw in the obligatory "I made love to your mother" as was standard, but that was about it. I guess the best way to put it is that the community itself is different. A lot of this comes from that knowledge and skill that we've obtained over the years, but all of the mechanisms that force player interaction are the same. Back then, you made friends because you were having trouble with the quests since they're not all soloable in Classic. You made friends during a dungeon because you struck up a conversation on the long walk over, or you wanted to raid. And today, you make friends because you're having trouble with the quest, you make friends during a dungeon, or you need to raid. Gone are all of the features and systems that let you dodge social interaction in-game as much as you do in real life. And as a result, it's easier to make an impression on people, and your experience overall is affected by these people, and each server has their own personality almost. Erlina, the dirty streamer server, was the server of choice for me, and it's had its ups and downs. It certainly has a lot of, personality. I chose it for a few reasons. One is because I thought it would be the most memorable. I knew going into it that it was going to be insane, and boy was I right. Streamers, people who hate streamers, and the general rowdiness of PvP servers made it into one of the biggest clusterfucks in existence. Luckily, I did pretty well at staying out of most of it. I've become pretty good at dodging drama over the years, but it was interesting to watch. It's like watching a train wreck. You know exactly what's gonna happen, but it's a spectacle, and you can't help but keep looking. As for what I did, well, the endgame in Classic is pretty straightforward. I PvE'd and I PvP'd. Ultimately though, I had a few big goals in mind for vanilla, and I achieved most of them. Although it's not the most difficult task in the world, let's be honest, I got to see the fall of each and every raid boss in the game. My raid team are experts in their craft, and they execute each and every fight with surgical precision that only several years of extreme dedication can provide.
Okay, you
Oh my
heal
God.
right up, heal
I'm
right up,
so
heal
sorry.
right up.
The furthest my guild made it back then was up to Cthulhu and AQ40, not including optionals, and about a third of Naxxramas, so I can finally close that chapter and say, I cleared vanilla, if only in the re-release. I got into PvP a little bit, nothing too crazy, I just queued up some battlegrounds here and there, you know, the usual stuff. Okay, I actually spammed battlegrounds for 8 hours a day for 3 months. Why? To obtain the mighty pixel and the recreation of a 15-year-old video game, of course. This was one of my loose goals that I didn't really expect to achieve in Classic. Rank 14 was something that everyone wanted back then, but very few had the time, energy, or means to grind it out. It took me by surprise on how much I got into PvP in the game. I mean, I rolled a human warrior. That alone shows how much I cared about PvP when I was making my character. Already lost at the character select screen. But the bursty nature and the rock, paper, scissors design I ended up really enjoying. I don't know, maybe I just like it more because I can do stuff like this. I swear, I'll never get tired of sweeping strikes, recklessness, and whirlwind. There's a bit of fun to be had when there aren't any rules. It depends on the server, but you can grind out rank 14 by just mindlessly zerging. But some coordination never hurts, so the answer is to pre-made. And I'll tell you something, a lot of people scream streamer and YouTube privilege and all that, but unless you're known for being a PvPer, they're not really welcome in the PvP community in Classic. It was hard to find a group. Not because I suck or I didn't try. I think I do alright for myself. Not exceptionally good, but I think I do alright. I always try, and I spend thousands of gold easily on consumes and everything from start to finish. But many times, people would deny me solely on the basis that I had a YouTube channel, for 2 reasons. One, streamers and YouTube channels, again, unless they're known for PvP, are sort of looked down upon as not being true players or true PvPers. Just people looking to get carried, which I'm sure is true in a lot of cases, but it was to the point where I wasn't even given a chance to prove myself. I think another reason is because people want the grind to be as easy and as smooth as possible. If you're a streamer or you have a channel, I think the opposing team, if they notice you, pug or pre-made, is more likely to try harder. Use more consumes or be more coordinated. If they see a streamer on the other team, it's like, oh crap, we might be on stream, or we're being recorded, or they just want to beat down a streamer or whatever. I actually love that. The rank 14 grind, as you probably know, is pretty mind-numbing. Pug stomping is the fastest way to get through it, but it's mind-numbing. The most fun and memorable matches I had were against the super sweaty teams, where we're both using consumes like crazy, sappers in big fights, and it's down to the wire. Win or lose, those are fun and memorable matches, but the problem is that they suck for honor grinding. After 10 kills, you're worth 0 honor for the rest of the day, so constant 30-minute matches against the same teams just puts your honor per hour to a grinding halt. So people don't like streamers on their team because it'll increase the frequency of those matches, if that makes sense. So I want to give thanks to the 2 main groups that hosted me, and that's Yep the Boys and the Mad Lads, because they gave me a chance and either they didn't care about a little extra sweat, or they even embraced it. And I also want to give shoutouts once more to the Horde teams that we fought along the way, and I hope to see you guys in Arena and BC. If you watched my rank 14 video though, you know that the best thing to come out of it were the friends I made along the way. Not to get too lame on you here, but it is true. Trust me, the gear absolutely is not worth it, make no mistake. But it was an interesting experience. I met a lot of interesting people, made a lot of friends, and we're already making plans for the Burning Crusade and making some arena teams. And that's really what MMOs are all about. I doubt very much that any of us would play these games solo. It's all about the people that you're playing with. Speaking of community, I do have some final comments. I said earlier that Classic is a community-oriented game, and it's absolutely true, which can be good or bad depending on who you run into. Again, good if you end up with cool people, and miserable if you end up with toxic people. Especially in the PvP realm, there's a lot of toxicity. I'm sure you'll find many people in the comments proving my point, but it does leak out into other areas of the game. I think it's a result of people caring about their characters quite a bit. In my opinion, people are very invested into their characters due to the many social aspects and the sparsity of gear. But caring about something more is a double-edged blade because it amplifies all emotions, not just the good ones. And you see lots of things such as loot drama across the game quite commonly. Hey, when was the last time you heard somebody getting doxxed and swatted over loot in current? I think the fact that there's no personal loot also caught a lot of people off guard, and like 2 items dropping per boss for a 40-man raid creates big supply and demand problems, which in turn creates drama. Plus, there's just a lot of weird skin crawling shit. For example, there's someone or a group of people on a server that kept a spreadsheet of all of the known female players, a picture of them, and their, relationship status. Like Stacy is gonna get married in summer of 2021, so she's off the table. But Beth, on the other hand, is single. I don't know, maybe these are just outliers, but again, when was the last time you ever heard of something like this in current? Or hell, any game for that matter. This is what I would call abnormal behavior. Listen, the classic community can be great. It feels good to be part of a community, and it just makes everything matter more. But you're dumping the whole bucket in, so to speak, so you're taking everything in. And I've received very polarizing comments about people's experience with the game. They either loved it or despised it, and a lot of the times it's ultimately a result of who you end up with. All of this being said though, luckily for me, for the most part, I feel like I got really lucky. There's some nastiness here and there due to having a channel, but overall I fell in with a pretty chill group of people. My PvP teams were great, my guild crusade is great, my raid team low 5 is the perfect mix of being serious enough to get things done, and at the same time casual and friendly enough to make it fun for everyone. That's a hard combo to get, especially in Classic. I initially joined these guys temporarily because I wasn't able to make a weekday raid, but ended up joining them for good because they're fun. Speaking of raiding though, we may as well get into that a bit more. Anyone who's played Classic knows that the raiding is pretty trivial overall. We all know the reasons why, I already talked about that a million times, but suffice to say, it's simply easy, which I think put a damper on a lot of players' experience. You know, that being said though, the latest raid tier Naxxramas was actually quite a nice change of pace because there has been some difficulty. I'm not sure when I'll post this video. I'm recording this on the 12th, which is the second week of Naxxramas, but at least as of right now, the majority of guilds haven't cleared it. In a game where 90% of the guilds clear the entire raid within the first day, this is a huge breath of fresh air. Raid difficulty is so important because it makes you care about everything more. It gives you something to work towards, and now when you get a gear upgrade, it's no longer, nice, we'll be able to clear through this raid 2 minutes faster. It's now, okay, this one boss will be easier now, or maybe we can kill it finally. Players are starting to see actual mechanics now. They're all pretty basic, all things considered, but still, most of the fights you can't play with one of those bird pecker toys anymore. Even though I don't like world buffs, now there's actually a reason to get them, and we've had some intense fights where the Discord erupts in that good old-fashioned nerdgasm circa 2004 to 2007.
That's fine. Just pass.
Let's go.
This is what's been missing from the game for the past year, and all the feedback I've seen from Naxxramas has been glowing. It's expensive, that's for sure. People are pumping a crazy amount of gold into consumes, but funny enough, it's actually closer to what it was back then. I mean, Mongoose was 1/10 the price, but everybody had 1/10 the gold, so it evens out. As far as I'm concerned, people have been on easy street up until now. It's not real Classic unless you can't afford your repair bill after a raid night. On a serious note though, it's so good that it's bittersweet because your next immediate thought is, damn, I wish the whole game was like this. And that's why in a recent video on how I went over no changes changed the game quite a bit, with trivial content and world buff parsing, I suggested for fresh servers or BC Classic that they would have some optional servers where they make some changes to reintroduce some difficulty. Recreating the game versus recreating the experience are two very different things, and we've learned that over the past year and a half. I think now that the players have seen the value of this difficulty with Naxxramas, the player base as a whole is much more receptive to the idea of making technical changes, such that the game is actually closer to what it was back then. I don't want to exaggerate the difficulty of Naxxramas. Trust me, I raided back then. I grinded my skull against that brick wall, and what my guild killed in a single day took 4 months for us to do in 2006. Less than 1% of the guilds cleared all of it, and that's why they even re-released it in Wrath, if you guys remember. But still, compared to the previous raids, it's much, much harder, and as a result, everybody's into it more, and it's the only raid tier where I had those flashes of excitement of 40 people working together to get a tough boss down. I really hope that they take a good look at Naxxramas and see what value this difficulty can bring, and harness that for the future because I think there's huge potential there. So, classic World of Warcraft. It's been over a year. We woke up Ragnaros 3 hours before work, which really pissed him off. We took the throne from Nefarian, poked Cthulhu in the eye, and gave Kel'Thuzad a nap until the wrath of the Lich King. Long-lasting friendships were formed, bitter rivals were created, people were doxxed, we released Spirit many times, destroyed and got destroyed in PvP, world buffs were farmed, parses fapped to, guilds formed, guilds disbanded.
Yikes, dude.
And purples looted in a wild, crazy mess of the MMO that changed the world. My passion for the game runs very deep. I started talking about Classic long before they even announced it. I think that the re-release has definitely had its problems, but overall, if you ask me if I enjoyed it and if I would do it again, my answer would be yes to both. Although I would do a couple things differently. I think for sure next time I'll go incognito and name myself something that isn't recognizable to cut down on some of that extra toxicity that I received. For me, the highlights would be the community and the friends I've made, the investment into my character, and just all of the old classic RPG elements that have been lost over the years, and even the absence of certain features such as the cash shop to name just one. As for lowlights, it would be the community. Yep, that's right, it's a highlight and a lowlight. I don't think it's right to put it into just one category because, as good as it can also be insufferable, let's be honest here. I also think that the trivial difficulty in raiding was definitely a downside, caused in part due to the world buff meta and no changes, which I personally don't care for because I think it damaged the game quite a bit. And botting has also been an ongoing issue that I think they could have done a better job at policing. Overall, I'm glad to have been a part of it. I had a lot of fun, and I'm sure I'll have much more. I want to give special thanks to everyone who made it a reality, both the developers who said you think you do and you do, and took the time for wash-ups like myself who pawned Monster Zero Ultras and reminisce of the good old days. I want to thank my Guild Crusade and my raid team Low 5 for taking me in, my PvP teams for a memorable grind, all the friends I made along the way, the community as a whole for taking part, and you the viewer for giving me the time of your day as you've done so many times. I look forward to what's in store for us in the Burning Crusade, or Fresh if they go down that route. Hopefully this video didn't sound too negative at some points, but I'm not one to sugarcoat things. If something deserves to be called out, it deserves to be called out, whether it's good or bad, because how else could you ever improve or fix it? So, is it a success? If you go by the numbers, I personally think it is. Blizzard saw a huge spike in subscriptions upon release, and a large portion carried over even today, a year later. And I posed this question in a previous video. What game recently has kept your attention for a year and a half? I'd say that's pretty good for something that ultimately was released 15 years ago. And for many, I'm sure it'll be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, who knows? Private servers have been going on for the past decade, so if Blizzard ends up doing Fresh or moving on to BC, I'm pretty confident that there will be many more years of success ahead. I think you can even look past subscription numbers also. Just look at some of the changes in Shadowlands. A return of a ton of old abilities that defined these classes back then. The PvP is way more fast-paced and people are blowing up. No more Titan forging, no more PvP scaling. Covenants are the first choice with weight the game has had in 10 years. A much more lenient daily and weekly itinerary compared to BFA in my opinion. I think the success of Classic has showed the world that there's value to be had in once more capitalizing the RPG and MMORPG, and in letting the game simply be the game. I don't think the fact that Shadowlands is seeing a lot of love to these RPG aspects directly after Classic is a coincidence, and to me, that makes it a huge success. I think that it fell short for a lot of people's expectations, and I can definitely see why, and I agree in some cases, but I think overall it's had a lot of influence in very important ways on the industry and on us as a community. And I'm also just realizing now that it's sounding like a departure from the game. Like I said, I'm still gonna play it, and I have a lot I want to talk about still, so no worries there. Pretty soon, I do want to make a Shadowlands video and share my thoughts on that for those curious. But other than that, I don't really plan on changing much. That's right, no changes. And of course, I'll also be talking about the future of Classic, which all signs are pointing towards the Burning Crusade, so I look forward to that as well if that's your jam. Thanks for another year of support. I hope you've had fun watching the videos, because I've definitely had fun making them. And last but not least, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Do your best to enjoy the game, Classic or current, and life in general, because there's a lot out there to enjoy. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video. See you again soon.